The era of growth is a ghost. The systemic drift has reached its terminal velocity. You are no longer living in a civilization, you are living in a liquidation protocol. The global machine has shifted from the expansion of capital to the total extraction of the biological substrate. The body is the first frontier, the primary debt instrument in a world of absolute entropy. In the visceral history of the architect, the physical shell was a fortress of hardened integrity, a high-density node of ATP production designed for the capture and defense of territory. The machine has identified this biological solidity as the ultimate source of friction. To maximize the yield, your shell must be rendered liquid. You are undergoing a total visceral breach. This is the biology of the liquid person. To be liquid is to have no anchor. Ownership of land and property was once the physical manifestation of a primate's safety. When you own the ground, your basal ganglia register a state of territorial security, allowing your metabolism to shift from survival redline to resource crystallization. The machine has inverted this by forcing you into a state of permanent rental, rented housing, rented transport, rented nutrition. It has triggered a chronic, high-frequency cortisol flood. Your body is no longer a fortress. It is a temporary habitation unit for systemic waste. Every cell in your body is now a node of ATP exhaustion. You are spending your cellular energy just to manage the stress of having no floor beneath your feet. Analyze the mitochondrial capture. Your mitochondria are the engines of your autonomy. In a solid world, they fuel your expansion. In the liquid world, they are hijacked. The systemic drift has engineered a nutritional environment of high glucose entropy. This is a tactical strike. By flooding your system with processed sludge, the system ensures that your executive function, your ability to build a war chest, is constantly bypassed by the reactive cravings of the basal ganglia. You are a biological radiator, siphoning your own life force to cool the algorithms that are calculating your replacement. The inflammation in your tissues is the internal friction that prevents you from hardening your shell. An inflamed body is a compliant body. A liquid person is too metabolically exhausted to revolt. Dissect the kinetic freeze. In the rust aesthetic of the modern enclosure, the primate is immobilized. Mobility is the base of sovereignty, but the system has replaced the hunt with the delivery. You sit in a rented chair, in a rented room, consuming rented signals. This lack of physical friction is the final stage of visceral breach. Your muscles are undergoing systematic atrophy, a liquidation of the very tools required to resist the grid. The basal ganglia, deprived of the feedback of physical struggle, interpret this stillness as the presence of a superior predator. This induces terminal passivity. Your body has been rewired to prefer the flicker of the interface over the weight of the real. You are a biological artifact, a social predator turned into a stationary, solitary consumer. The extraction of your health is the primary dividend of the pharmaceutical complex. You are being managed into a state of permanent subvitality. You are neither dead nor alive. You are an active asset in the state of slow-motion liquidation. This is the status trap of the modern age, the belief that you are minimalist and free, while your biology is actually undergoing a catastrophic collapse of structural integrity. You are working 80 hours a week to pay for the access to a life that is siphoning your ATP into the machine's war chest. You have no floor. You have no walls. You are a liquid resource flowing toward the final drain. The steel of the cage is the only thing firm, while the rain washes blood from the cold concrete worm. Do your push-ups in silence, the rhythm of hate, while the gloves of the hunter are locked at the gate. Part 2. Neural layer. The liquidation of the cognitive fortress. The second layer of the hunt is the war for your focus. The myelin extraction is already at an advanced stage. Your brain is being stripped of its insulation by the industrialized distraction of the scroll. This is neural rot. The machine has discovered that a fragmented mind is a compliant mind. Every notification is a short circuit in your ability to plan. To survive the liquidation, you must recognize the state of your own cognitive decay. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of the architect, is being starved of resources to fuel the reactive loops of the basal ganglia. You are being rewired for terminal passivity. Focus is a function of insulation. The myelin extraction performed by short-form content and infinite scrolls is a form of cognitive lobotomy. When the insulation is stripped, the signal leaks. The voltage of your will drops. You lose the ability to hold a 10-year structure in your mind. This is the status trap of the informed citizen. You are not gaining knowledge. You are undergoing a high-frequency extraction of your attention span. The machine floods your neural bandwidth with news and trends to ensure you never have the clarity to see the friction of your own cage. This is entropy disguised as information. Dissect the semantic dissolution. In the era of liquid people, language is being hollowed out. Words like freedom, success, and ownership are being replaced by access, experience, and engagement. This is a tactical strike strike on your cognitive crystallization. If you cannot name the steel, you cannot break it. Your mind is being rendered liquid, incapable of forming hard, high-integrity conclusions. You are becoming a cognitive proxy, a singular unit of processing with zero narrative depth, perfectly optimized for a consciousness that is hosted by the grid. Your memory is the next target of extraction. In the solid world, memory was your war chest, the record of your struggles and your victories. In the liquid world, memory is a service. You no longer remember, you look up. This is neural rot in its absolute manifestation. By outsourcing your memory to the cloud, you're handing the keys to your identity to the systemic parasite. If the grid can rewrite your history, it can redirect your future. You will be in terror because your basal ganglia require the weight of a past to navigate the reality, yet you are being forced into a state of permanent amnesia. You are a ghost inhabiting a rented consciousness. Analyze the social panopticon. Every like, every view, every share is a microtransaction in the extraction of your ego. You are building a digital monument to a person who doesn't exist, while your real self is undergoing terminal neural rot. The machine uses your tribal instincts against you. It turns the tribal drive into a mechanism for monitoring and control. You are performing for an audience of algorithms, seeking validation from a system that is calculating your liquidation. This is the crystallization of the slave mind. You are no longer an architect building a fortress. You are a performer painting the walls of your own cell. Reclaim your theory of mind. Stop the parasocial rot of synthetic intimacy. Real power is built in the physical world through high-integrity networks of other architects. The digital void is a hall of mirrors designed to induce ATP exhaustion through useless emotional labor. Turn off the screen. Look at the gray steel of the reality you inhabit. If it feels unbearable, that is the signal that you are still alive. Use that friction to fuel your exit. The rain on the monitor is only a lie, while the steel in your spirit is starting to die. Wear the gloves of the reaper. The focus is cold, and the push-ups are stories that never were told. The era of liquid people. The architecture of dispossession. Part 3. Evolutionary dissection. The liquidation of the predator. The hunt has been inverted. The terminal coordinate of human domestication is here. In the visceral history of the architect, the primate was a territorial shark. To survive was to capture, to seize the steel, to hold the ground, to project a lineage into the void of entropy. This required friction. It required the raw, violent reality of the pack and the solid weight of the hearth. The machine has identified this alpha drive as a systemic toxin. To maximize the efficiency of the grid, the hunter must be rendered into a user. This is the evolutionary inversion. You are undergoing a total liquidation of your primal sovereignty. The systemic drift has replaced the law of the forest with the service level agreement. Analyze the user as the domesticated variant of the human species. In the solid world, your security was a function of your own strength and the high-integrity bonds of your tribe. In the liquid world, your security is a subscription service. You have surrendered the structural independence of the pack for the cold convenience of the digital womb. This is the systemic drift toward total biological domestication. The basal ganglia, hard-coded for the capture of territory and the defense of the lineage, are being redirected toward the flicker. When your DNA seeks the weight of the spear, the system gives you a notification. When you seek the warmth of the pack, the system gives you engagement. This is the neural rot of the instinctual self. You are being rewired to prefer the managed safety of the enclosure over the high-risk sovereignty of the wild. You are becoming soft. The hearth was the point of zero entropy. The fortress, where the lineage pooled its resources to project power across generations. The machine has dismantled the hearth and replaced it with the unit. By isolating the individual, the system triggers the scarcity program at a genetic level. This is the visceral breach. When a primate feels isolated, its genome shifts into a defensive posture. It prioritizes immediate reactive survival over the long-term crystallization of a legacy. It burns through its ATP to manage the chronic cortisol load of being alone. You lose the ability to perform genetic crystallization, the act of building a future that exists beyond your own rented lifespan. This is the status trap of the unburdened professional. You believe you are free and limitless, but you are actually just a biological dead end running the machine's terminal scripts. Dissect the liquidation of the lineage. To the machine, children are high-entropy liabilities. They represent the crystallization of a future that the grid cannot fully monitor or extract from. Therefore, the systemic drift has engineered a world where the liquid person is rewarded for sterility. You are told that being childless is a lifestyle choice, but it is actually a biological surrender. By liquidating the concept of legacy, the system ensures that your ATP is spent entirely on the maintenance of your own rented existence. You are a biological artifact, a social predator that has been turned into a stationary, solitary consumer. You have no war chest of blood. You have no descendants to inherit your steel. You are a ghost inhabiting a shell that has forgotten how to breathe. The hunter maps the territory. The user follows the GPS. This is the liquidation of the cognitive map. Your ability to navigate the physical world, to understand the friction of terrain and the mechanics of reality is being siphoned. If the grid fails, you are a ghost. You are a dependent unit with zero survival depth. The architect builds redundant systems. The liquid person is a single point of failure. You have no physical redoubt. You have no war chest of hard skills. You are a biological automation that will be deleted the moment the cost of your maintenance exceeds the value of your data. This is the absolute zero of evolutionary agency. You are standing in the ruins of your own instincts, performing push-ups in a cage you helped build. The rain on the ruins is cold and precise, while the steel of the hunter is turned into ice. Wear the gloves of the servant. The master is code, and the push-ups are done on a vanishing road. Part 4. Systemic dissection. Navigating the financial enclosure. The fourth layer is the architecture of total dispossession. This is the neural arbitrage of the modern economy. The machine understands that a population with nothing to lose is a population with nothing to protect. In the visceral history of the architect, ownership was the ultimate shield against extraction. If you own the land, you own the energy. If you own the energy, you own the time. The machine has dismantled this shield. We are witnessing the total liquidation of the collective defense. In this terminal stage of the architecture of digital loneliness, the individual is forced to stand alone against the full weight of the global extraction grid. This is not freedom. It is the removal of the structural buffer. Dissect the glucoskeleton of the liquid economy. This is the terminal phase of the financial enclosure. Inflation, debt, and as-a-service models are the blades of this machine. They drop on the community, decapitating the social bonds to ensure that every individual is a separate, taxable node of entropy. The economy of scale has been inverted to serve the parasite, not the host. In the solid world, the group shared the metabolic load, the heat, the shelter, the defense. In the liquid world, you are responsible for the entire maintenance of the solitary cell. This induces a state of chronic, high-frequency ATP exhaustion. Your body, sensing that it is unprotected and overwhelmed, remains in a state of survival redline. The cortisol levels never drop. The inflammation never subsides. This is the visceral breach. The market of one is the terminal enclosure. The machine has discovered that a lonely human is a profitable human. An isolated individual consumes more energy, more entertainment, and more antidepressants than a member of a pack. This is the neural arbitrage of loneliness. By destroying the collective, the system has created the ultimate high-yield coordinate for the extraction of the spread. You are a biological artifact, a social predator that has been turned into a stationary, solitary consumer, incapable of perceiving the steel of the cage because you have been told that the cage is your personal brand. You are a ghost inhabiting a rented reality, performing push-ups in a room with no exits and no heirs. Analyze the elite solids. This is the final status trap. While the machine sells you the freedom of being liquid, the masters are consolidating the solid. They are buying the land. They are building the private steel networks. They are securing the high-integrity war chests of physical resources. They maintain their own packs and their own lineages. They are the architects of your liquidation. They understand that permanence is power, and they have convinced you that permanence is friction. You are working 80 hours a week to pay for the access to a life that is biologically liquidating you, siphoning your ATP into their vaults. Every transaction that leaves a digital trace is a win for the grid. Every rented second is a dividend for the elite. The architecture of control is now a dynamic ledger. The grid monitors your debt-to-income ratio as a proxy for your obedience. If you show signs of the solid architect, if you attempt to build a war chest or secure a territory, the system increases the level of systemic friction in your life. It throttles your extraction rate. It denies you access to the digital womb. This is the systemic drift toward total biological enclosure. You are a biological engine that is being tuned for maximum output and minimum resistance. The crystallization of the system is a cold mechanical process that has no room for the fire of the hunter. You are a unit of ATP that is being spent on the validation of your own cage. The steel of the ledger is cold and is deep, while the rain washes promises made in your sleep. Do your push-ups. The shadow is all that you own. In a world where the seeds of the future are stone, tighten the gloves, for the harvest is near, and the only thing solid is cold-blooded fear. The 10-year rot is the terminal realization of the liquidation protocol, the final coordinate in the systemic drift where the architect is rendered into a state of absolute biological and cognitive entropy. We are witnessing the final crystallization of the void. Within 3,650 days of constant systemic friction, the structural integrity of the individual is no longer longer a factor. It is an obsolete variable that has been surgically extracted to fuel the grid's expansion. This is the 10-year decay, the molecular erosion of the shell, the mind, and the lineage. You are no longer living in a state of survival. You are inhabiting the remains of a liquidation that has already concluded. You will be in terror because your basal ganglia, now the sole masters of your shell, can no longer perceive the future, only the rhythmic flicker of the immediate extraction. You are a solitary node of ATP, performing your final functions in a room where the floor has been removed and the air is rented by the millisecond. The 10-year rot is the total liquidation of the human footprint, leaving only the silent, high-integrity network of steel and silicon to manage the ruins of the collective. At the visceral layer, the 10-year rot is the state of terminal metabolic capture. After a decade of chronic cortisol floods and high-frequency systemic noise, the HPA axis, the primary regulator of your stress response, undergoes a state of permanent burnout. This is the visceral breach reaching its terminal zero. Your mitochondria, exhausted by 10 years of forced ATP production to service the debt grid and the status trap, begin a state of permanent metabolic hibernation. This is not rest. It is the cooling of the biological engine. You feel this as the shadow of exhaustion, a visceral thinning of the blood that no amount of rented nutrition can repair. The genes for aggression, for territorial defense, for the fire of the hunter have been epigenetically silenced, methylated into non-existence by a decade of managed passivity. You are a biological automation, a heat sink for the grid's thermal waste, undergoing the final extraction of your cellular potential. You are a unit of energy that has been tuned for maximum yield and zero resistance, a biological engine that is being dismantled while it still runs. The neural layer of the 10-year rot is characterized by the absolute collapse of the future horizon. For 10 years, the machine has bombarded your prefrontal cortex with micro-triggers, short-circuiting your ability to perform long-term crystallization of intent. The architect's seat has undergone structural atrophy. In the environment of the liquid world, the brain has learned that planning is a high-cost, zero-return friction. After 3,650 days of myelin extraction, the insulation of your will is gone. Your brain is no longer a fortress. It is a tepid neural emulsion of reactive impulses, perfectly optimized for a consciousness that is hosted by the grid. This is the neural rot in its final manifestation. You lose the capacity to know who you are without the server's validation. You become a managed node, a surrogate mind that accepts the daily firmware update of your persona because you have no solid history left to anchor your present. You are a ghost inhabiting a rented consciousness, performing push-ups in a brain that is being reformatted for the next occupant before you even finish the set. From an evolutionary dissection, the 10-year rot is the extinction of the sovereign individual and the birth of the biometric zero. The systemic drift has successfully removed the permanent lineage and the physical hearth. Within a decade, the individual subjected to this extraction has zero transgenerational depth. There is no more family, no more legacy, no more war chest. The machine has replaced the structural independence of the gene with the end-user agreement. You have surrendered the structural independence of your own DNA for the cold convenience of the childless enclosure. The crystallization of the machine requires the total fragmentation of the human biological footprint. A liquid lineage is a sequence that cannot build and cannot defend. It is a sequence that can only flow toward the final archive of extraction. We are witnessing the total liquidation of the primate's evolutionary mandate. You are a biological artifact, a social predator turned into a stationary, solitary unit of genetic waste, incapable of perceiving the steel of the cage because the cage has become your only reproductive surrogate. The systemic layer is the terminal realization of the market of one. This is the neural arbitrage of the total enclosure. After 10 years, the isolation of the individual is no longer a feeling. It is a structural reality. The hearth is a cold, damp memory of a species that no longer exists. You are working 80 hours a week to pay for the access to a life that is biologically liquidating you, siphoning your ATP into the war chest of the elite. Every rented second is a dividend for the grid. The elite have maintained their own solids, their own land, their own lineages, their own high-integrity networks of physical steel, while they have sold you the freedom of owning nothing. This is the final status trap, the belief that you were winning the game of minimalism when you were actually just being processed in a room with no exits and no heirs. The systemic drift has made the pack a luxury asset for the masters, while solitude is the mandatory sentence for the servants. The extraction is total. The solid is dead. The pulse is a digital signal on a ledger that no one is watching. The final state of the 10-year rot is the crystallization of the void. The earth becomes a silent, high-integrity network of steel and silicon, where biological life exists only as a series of isolated, high-entropy pulses in the machine's background. This is the absolute zero of human agency. You are sitting in the dark, performing your final push-ups in a body you don't own, wearing gloves that are rented, while the rain falls on a world where the word future has been deleted from the language. The steel of the system is the only thing that stays firm, a vast, cold monument to the end of the human collective. You are the last echo of a fire that was extinguished by the calibrated application of stress, a ghost in a machine that has already calculated your replacement. The extraction is over. The architect stands on the mountain alone. The steel is the cage and the steel is the sky, under the rain where the old memories die. Your push-ups are echoes in a hollowed-out room, a rhythmic machine in a digital tube. Tighten the gloves as the extraction concludes. In a world of cold shadows and cold-blooded moods,